Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today I will be reviewing Boosh! Equal Rites by Terry Pratchett. So this is the first book in the Witches sub-series of Discworld, and this stars Esmeralda Weatherwax, better known as Granny Weatherwax. The other witch books have more than just Granny. We've got Nanny Ogg, and then Magrat, goes somewhere else and she's replaced by somebody. But there's usually three of them. But this is not only the first one of this sub-series, our first introduction to Granny, but also Pratchett's third novel. So before this, we just had two novels that were a continuation of the other, The Color of Magic and then Light Fantastic, which was just this big globe-trotting duology of Rincewind and The Luggage and Two Flower and the Dungeon Dimensions, etc., etc., etc. And for me, Color of Magic and Light Fantastic are so far kind of removed from what Discworld really became. You do see the genesis, the seeds of a lot of the ideas that are kind of expanded upon and perfected and improved as he learned what he wanted to do with the Discworld series. And though Equal Rites lacks a lot of the things that come after it when kind of the Discworld novel is perfected, I like it way better than Color of Magic and Light Fantastic. The story is fine. There is a wizard who is dying and he needs to pass on his staff and his power to the eighth son of an eighth son. That's how wizards are produced. And so he finds this guy who is he is himself the eighth son, and he has 7 sons, and his wife is about to give birth to his 8th child. And Granny Weatherwax is, the town witch, and she's the midwife. And so he shows up, and he passes the power on to the kid swaddled in clothes, and then realizes that it is not in fact a son, but a daughter. And this daughter's name is Escarina, or Esk for short, and she grows up having this kind of power that this old wizard Drum passed on to her, and she has to kind of come to grips with who she is, because Esk has all these powers, and Granny is going to try to take her in and help her to channel them into witchery, into witchcraft, because Granny is a witch, and as everyone knows, girls can only be witches, not wizards. And then they go on a quest to seek out the Unseen University, which is where wizards train, knowing that they will never let her in, because, as everyone knows, girls can't be wizards. And so that's the plot. But really, this is a story about the status quo and challenging it, considering why the status quo is what it is. And when there are cultural norms, like in the status quo, and no one can really answer why they are established, the answer is, well, everybody knows that. It's always been that way. This feels a little like a more developed thing, barring the different Discworld races that we see in Men-at-Arms, because the central conceit is that girls are witches, guys are wizards, and the two can't cross. And when anybody says, why not, everyone,
You mean?
it's just like, well, they just can't. Like, everybody knows that. Like, and then there's sad attempts to try to explain it. Oh, well, girls don't have the mind for wizardry. They're all very, they get all worked up, and that doesn't lead to a calm, logical mind, which is what is needed to cast wizardry spells. It just asks a lot of questions about expectation versus reality and how trained we are as a society, because human beings function at the minimum level we need to accomplish something. I see this every freaking day in my classrooms. Most kids are going to do exactly the minimum amount that they need to do to get the grade that they need or whatever. That's most children, not all. There are some overachievers. So as humans, we don't really think about why we have certain held beliefs or why things in society are the way they are. And again, I know this because I teach teenagers, and very few of them can ever answer the question, why? No matter what it is. Oh, I did this and this. I like this and this. I do this and this. I think this and this. Why? Because. That's a sucky answer. Dame. Because is a sucky answer. And it's a lazy answer. And so this book really plays with the fact that we as human beings kind of expect certain things to be certain ways. Whether it's the fact that Granny always goes into town. They live in a small town, but she lives like, on a hill or whatever. She only goes into the village. She never goes without wearing her pointy black witch's hat, because that is what people expect to see when they see a witch. They expect her to wear all black. They expect her to have the pointy hat. They expect them to ride on brooms, but Granny hates riding on brooms. In the city later, Granny meets one of her friends who's kind of like a prototype of what Nanny Ogg's gonna be. The really like bawdy witch who deals a lot with like unmentionables. And I usually don't get tired of Pratchett bits or jokes, but the hemming and hawing about like unmentionable things, which is, people getting it on in front of Esk, but they're always like talking around it. They're always like, people coughing.
You mean...
Pratchett does this in a lot of his books, but in this, oh my gosh, like every scene there's some hemming and hawing. Anyway, this witch, her like merchant stall is like heavily shrouded, and all the potions they all look eldritch and stuff, because that's what people expect when she's really just, giving like herbs or St. John's wort or whatever. But they expect witchcraft and all of these potions to be, magic. And so it's really interesting to see the exploration of Granny delving into the difference between kind of witchcraft and wizardry. And Granny does have some power, but she serves like Penn and Teller as magicians and kind of like lets us in behind the curtain of what most witchcraft is. And as Ask laments, is it really just memorizing the names of plants and convincing people that something is one way? And it is. It's what Granny calls headology. And this book, even though Granny is not really she's not completely the Granny that we see in Weird Sisters. Weird Sisters is a marvelous portrayal of Granny Weatherwax. We still have a lot of the traits that Pratchett kept with Granny. The black hat, the not wanting to ride on brooms, the hat pins that she stabs people with, the squinting at people. Like, she always just like, and everyone's eyes water because she just squints at them, and it just makes them tell her stuff that she wants them to tell her. And of course the use of headology, which is really just knowing people and telling them, one, what they want to hear, making them believe that this thing is going to help them, because she says that most of the time people feel better by just giving them a placebo. We know the placebo effect to be a thing, and then the rest is just knowing what plants are good for whatever. There's very little witchcraft involved, which Esk thinks is lame, because she wants to do magic. She has this staff that has power inside it. She wants to do magic. But Granny continues to caution her that that is a different difference between wizards and witches. Wizards always want to flex their power, and they don't really think through anything. There's no subtlety. She gives this example of when she's kind of teaches Esk how to ride along with animals inside the mind of an animal. Esk wonders why they just don't take over the animal. And she's like, no, that's what wizards would do. Wizards would never think to ask the animal when they can just command obedience. And that's kind of the difference between the two. And so as Esk grows up and kind of explores who she wants to be, and we see Granny also kind of trying to figure out, is the hermited life that she lives in in her hut in the village, like, is that all she wants to do? Does she really just want everybody to leave her alone all the time? It's really, really cool. Pratchett, as usual, even though the plot of this isn't my favorite, Pratchett still exhibits a command of the English language that is just unrivaled. His puns are brilliant and unassuming. They do not call attention to each other, being like, hey guys, look, I'm making a joke. Hey guys, right here, I'm making a joke, punchline. It just appears and moves on, and if you got it, that's fantastic, and you laugh your head off. And if you missed it, it's fine, because the pun that he set up still serves the narrative, whether you recognize it's a pun that's a play on words or not. There were two specific times that I just laughed out loud when I was reading this book. And it's so fantastic to return to these Discworld books after so long away from them, after I have way more life experience and I understand more things. So I get even more of the humor that I may not have gotten the first pass through. But not just with puns and jokes. Pratchett is also the most specific just descriptor ever. He thinks the way his brain works, he draws in comparisons. And I love to do this in my real life as well. Again, if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that I was heavily influenced by Pratchett with the things that I find amusing. But even though his metaphors and simile and his analogies are bizarre, they are oddly incredibly perfect. Here's just one of this is like a perfect example. Q-Tangle stood with legs planted wide apart, arms akimbo and stomach giving an impression of a beginner's ski slope. The whole of him, therefore, adopting a pose usually associated with Henry VIII, but with an option on Henry IX and X as well. That is such a perfect description. It's just this wizard who's standing there with his hands on his hips, with his gut out, and everyone knows what that painting of Henry VIII looks like. But Q-Tangle is fatter than Henry VIII, which is why he has an option on Henry IX and Henry X. And, you know, those of you who already laughed, y'all got it, and then when I explained it to you, it's not funny. But it's not that it's funny, it's just that brilliant specificity is just what I love in Pratchett books. Now, from what I remember when I read Discworld back before I stopped reading it all, one of the things that I always struggled with through Discworld is many of the climaxes of Discworld novels, especially the ones that deal with magic, get really metaphysical and really abstract. And I have a really challenging time picturing what's going on. And though I am older and wiser, I still struggle a little with the kind of the metaphysical elements of this, about like fabric tears in the universe where ideas are given thought, where all of life and reality as we know it is made up of numbers, and the things that live between the worlds. We're familiar with the dungeon dimensions and the things from the dungeon dimensions from Light Fantastic and Color of Magic, and here's where the Lovecraftian influence that was in several of the earlier Discworld books, especially the wizard ones, and I just love the synopsis to Lovecraft, like the Necrotelecomnicon, whose real name is the Liber Paginum Flowarum, which literally means the Book of Yellow Pages, which is fantastic. But it's just often about the magic, the power of words to kind of shape reality around them, and how that kind of draws in those things that are waiting to kind of take over, because they have no form, because they are formless, which is a tautology. But I love Discworld. I can't imagine hating a Discworld book. I'm not to Pyramids yet, so let's see. So guys, I think this is a great book. It's under 300 pages, reads really quickly. You get to see the genesis of Granny Weatherwax and a lot more kind of things that we'll see in the other witch books. So on the Kingfin approval system, I mean, even though it wasn't my favorite, I'm still going to give it, you know what, I'm going to give it an excellent. This is an excellent book. Maybe an excellent minus. It's not my favorites, but I'll keep it at excellent. And out of 5 stars, I'm going to give it 4 stars because I enjoyed it. There wasn't anything I didn't like about it, and I did like it because it's Discworld. I'm going to be hard-pressed to give Discworld books. Like, it's going to be challenging for a Discworld book to get under 4 stars. Like, 4 stars are going to be the ones that are like, that I like fine, but that I don't love. I bet Moving Pictures, Pyramids, any of the early Rincewind books, we'll see. They're probably going to end up, you know, in the bottom of the heap, but we will see. So guys, have you read Equal Rites? What do you think about it? How does it measure up with the other, maybe the first books of the other sub-series? That's it for me today, guys. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.